أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون.
I'm going to quickly move to Shaykh Shams Adduha, if I can see him somewhere. There he is. Shaykh Shams, if you could just give us a snippet of the various meetings you've had, and I'm realizing the time, and this is why I'm going to ask everybody from here on in to be very quick on this, because there are a number of questions that have been prompted to us. Shaykh Shams, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters, guests. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. I'm going to be very, very mindful and wary of the fact that my big brother Mizan is standing over my shoulders and he's going to absolutely shoot me down if I go over time. So I've noted some points down. I'm going to try not to repeat what others have said. I think a lot of points have been made by my colleagues very clearly. I just want to try to highlight a few things that I think are important for parents to hear. We have almost 400 people here. Most will be concerned parents and people of Tower Hamlets and beyond. I just saw a message from a student of mine up in Scotland who said, this is for Tower Hamlets people. But I just, for those of you who are not from Tower Hamlets, this issue is unfolding across the country, pretty much wherever there is a liberal council in place, whether it's Labour or, I mean, we're talking Labour. I'm sorry to make it about a party issue, but that is what's happening. In inner city boroughs, this is the kind of line that's being taken. We have a similar situation in places like Kirklees and so on, where we recently just had that school row, the Batley school row. So anyway, so first and foremost, the DfE has handed this issue down to schools. DfE has a fairly broad set of guidelines on this issue and has left it to schools to consult parents and decide with them. Tower Hamlets Council has sort of provided a degree of protection to schools by taking the onus on themselves to step in and give some guidance to schools, as if to say schools have to listen to what we are saying. That is not what the government guidance says. That's not what the law says. Schools are supposed to consult parents and decide for themselves. Interestingly, when we speak to schools, we're told we have to do as the borough says. I want everybody to understand this clearly. We're told we have to do as the borough says. When we challenge the council, as in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, when we challenge the council says it's down to the schools. So basically, what is going on, right? So, but as far as the law is concerned, it's down to schools and their consultation with parents. And what I'm trying to say to the 400 or so people here is, it comes down to you at the end of the day. And I'll keep repeating this, inshallah. Secondly, I don't know why we have to say this, but I feel like I must, right? And that is that as the Muslim community, myself as a community leader and imam, right, a person who's responsible for religious guidance, we don't have a problem with what are now the controversial elements of RSE, the LGBT teaching parts, the naming of the private organs and so on and so forth. We don't have a problem with teaching these things to children in principle, right? Our concerns are with age appropriateness. It's to do with at what age are children being exposed to these things, right? every single parent will teach their children about private parts, about their private organs. Okay, many people out there will be like, oh, Muslims are not going to teach their children about LGBT people, right? Okay, let's put that issue aside, right? Well, our children are going to know about their sexual organs and their private organs, right? They are. So we can't possibly have a problem with that in principle. The issue is about age appropriateness. What I would like to assert again is it's the same with the LGBT issue. We know where we are. I'm not in Bangladesh or Saudi Arabia. This is Britain, right? And we're all citizens of this country. And the LGBT issue isn't new. It hasn't just dawned on us today that there are LGBT people around. You know, we may have neighbors and community members who are LGBT. Our children are being taught by teachers who are from the LGBT community. That's not the issue. The issue is it appropriate for me to be put into a position as a Muslim whose religion does have a position on this, for my hand to be forced to have this conversation with my 5-year-old? And is it appropriate for the school to be having that conversation with my child and taking this out of my hands? This is the issue. It's a question of age appropriateness, and that legally the government does not require schools to have this conversation at the age of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. But at some point in primary school, according to perhaps one interpretation, although there is the opinion that it's not required at all in primary school. So this is the thing that we have to basically clarify, and we keep having to put this disclaimer forward, of course, because the basic assumption is, oh, Muslims just want to impose Islam on the rest of society. It's just not the case, right? Right. There's also, and it's not just about these two issues, and you know, and there's also questions about pedagogy. I just want to put this out there, right? What are, you know, schools do not, on these issues, schools cannot claim to know best, because these are policies that have only just been implemented. How can you possibly know what's best in these issues, right? So I think parents we should be able to say, hang on a second, we'd like to have a say on this, right? How can you possibly know what's best on a new issue, on a new policy decision, right? How can you possibly know what is the best way to teach about private parts, and what is the best way to present something that is, to a child of faith, that is deeply troublesome from their faith background, that can be deeply problematic. It can put them in a position where they're confused, or it puts their parents in a. How can you possibly know that pedagogically you know exactly what is the right way to do this? You can't. There has to be consultation, there has to be dialogue, there has to be compromise. The next point I want to make is just a little point about demographics, just to show that we're not just kind of screaming and shouting in Tower Hamlets for no reason, right? Demographically speaking, 65% of school-age children on average in Tower Hamlets are Muslim, right? In many of our Tower Hamlets schools, like the school that all 3 of my children, 2 have attended and 1 remains, who's 3 who will attend, we're talking about 80-90% representation of Muslim children. How can these schools not take on board the Muslim position when, forget the possibility of children from LGBT families, the possibility of non-Muslim, the non-Muslim demographic in these schools is so tiny. How can the parents' concerns not be taken into consideration? Surely there has to be a school by school varied policy. On what basis is Tower Hamlets Council taking a blanket position on this for every single school in Tower Hamlets? This makes absolutely zero sense, right? And we can't even approach them on this. I mean, our councillors, many from the community, by the way, are playing no role in this, and they won't even attend these types of events. Yeah, of course they have their reasons, and we'll acknowledge that. But parents, you know, you're voting these people in. You're voting them. You're going to be knocking on each other's door and saying, oh, please vote for so-and-so because she's from this village back home, etc., etc. Do please consider asking them about this issue, right? Another point is parents are concerned they cannot speak up because they will get labeled as homophobic. I think Sister Sophia mentioned this. This is a critical issue. Essentially, what's happening is, and I'm sorry if this sounds a bit presumptive of me, but I've seen enough evidence of this. There is a kind of hedging of bets, right? This is a controversial issue. Let's make decisions that the Muslim community actually doesn't accept. However, voices are going to be muted on this issue because everybody's worried about being politically incorrect, right? And coming across as homophobic. And a lot of parents have directly voiced this concern to us. I'm sorry, parents, you have to speak up. As difficult as it is, you have to speak up because we are being told as community leaders, it's down to the parents. If you're silent, these policies are going to go ahead and be implemented. In fact, policies are being drafted as we speak. Some of them are going to be implemented after Easter. We have to step in and do something about it. You have to go and speak to your schools. The legal issue. The many parents, actually, I want to come to this, and I know I need to wrap up, Ms. Anbay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
This issue represents a complete breakdown of trust between Tower Hamlets Council, the community, as well as a breakdown of trust between schools and between parents. I just want to put that out there. This is a serious issue. The council and schools need to take this seriously. This is a breakdown of trust, perhaps even a breach of trust, right? And finally, when parents go to schools, they're being told the following. Number one, so the school and the council, their position is, our position is legally sound. This is the legal issue. Our position is legally sound. So parents are being pushed, there's this pushback against parents saying, well, we've taken legal advice on this. This is how it has to be. There's nothing that can be done. Or at least that's the impression parents are walking away from. Well, we can tell you in this public meeting, and my colleagues will say further, that the council's legal advice is a position, right? We have also taken advice, and there is another position, right? And it's quite clear, in fact, just read the government guidance. So please be confident about this. Number two, we're required to consult. We're not required to listen. I mean, what a terrible thing to say, but parents, and we are being told this. We're required to consult. We're not required to listen. So what about the demographics I just mentioned? And what is the point of the consultation then? Right. So number three, the Tower Hamlets Council's position is to safeguard children, including children from LGBT families. First of all,
Shaykh Shams, I'm going to ask you to wrap up very quickly,
yes,
please.
I'm done. There's two more points, Ms. Anbay, and I'm done, right? First of all, we don't buy it. The safeguarding argument doesn't make sense. We can't, Kate Smith, the mayor, we've sat with them face to face and they can't convince us. They can't even make a clear, cogent argument about how this is a safeguarding issue. I said to both of them in a face-to-face meeting, can you please explain to me what threat does my 5-year-old son pose to children from LGBT families? Are you trying to say that my 5-year-old, my 6-year-old, my 7-year-old is a threat and that you have to safeguard these children if they happen to be in their school from my 5-year-old? My 5-year-old is going to be homophobic. My 6-year-old is going to be homophobic. I mean, what exactly is the assumption at play here? Can you see the problem, brothers and sisters, right? We have to challenge this kind of nonsense, right? So that's this, the safeguarding issue. And what about the safeguarding of the rights of Muslim parents and Muslim children? Are they just going to be trampled on? So there's a balance and there's a compromise that has to be arrived at. That's all we're asking for. And finally, the schools and the council's position the response often is that we have listened to parents and have raised the age to key stage 2. I just want to say this because I know we're saying age 5 a lot here. The schools that I have met, so I've gone and met some head teachers. They've said, you know what, the council is recommending that we start at age 5 at key stage 1, but you know what, that's untenable. But we're gonna implement it from age 7, from key stage 2. And my response is, well, we don't accept that. Why do you need to? Why does it have to be from key stage 2? Why not higher? Why can't we start having an open conversation about age appropriateness, and at least I can present my arguments for why I think it should be perhaps at age 10, right? Why not? Well, first of all, as a parent, that's when I feel I can have a proper conversation with my child about these issues. How am I supposed to have these conversations with them at the age of 7? Right? I mean, I'm a parent. I know what a 7-year-old can and can't understand and how much confusion these issues will cause. So we have to push back against all of these, honestly, nonsensical arguments. This is what the comeback is when we challenge them. You can't just accept it. You can't. Okay, brothers and sisters. So anyway, I hope I didn't repeat too much of what's already being said. Jazakumullah khairan. Mizan Bhai, I do apologize if I've taken up extra time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shaykh Shams. You've made a number of points which I think needs to be drilled in, and one of those is that the Muslim community, let me rephrase that, parents of every faith in East London are walking in with eyes closed until they hear. And I've seen some of the text messages or some of the questions, and one of them from a sister who says, my young child came in and said, mother, at school they showed me a picture of a woman and her private parts, and it made her sick. It made her physically vomit.